Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Dana and this is Delighted to DIY. DIY number 1. Starting with a yard of lemon fabric from Michael's and a 4x6 canvas from the Dollar Tree, we're going to use the fabric to cover the complete front of the canvas. I just laid it on top and cut around, then used some Aleene's tacky glue and a sponge brush. I spread out the glue on top of the canvas and then laid my fabric on top, centering it to make sure it was straight. I then used the glue along the sides and brought the material up and over and folded the corners in kind of like a present, where I folded one corner and then the other on top of each other, doing this all the way around on all 4 sides. Today's video is part of an open playlist. It's the 5 Under 5 DIY challenge, and this month the theme was lemon decor. This awesome challenge is hosted by Missi from Craft Cove DIY, Emily from Farm Charm Chic, and this month the guest host is Jackie from Blessed Beyond Measure. I will have a link to all 3 of the hosts' channels in my description box below, as well as a link for the playlist to check out all the other awesome creators who have participated along this month. After all white parts of the canvas were covered with material and I had trimmed off any pieces that were extra or hanging over to just kind of clean up the back, I began with some paper piecing. I used cardstock and pattern paper that I had from my stash, as scrapbooking was kind of my start to crafting. Then I moved into crocheting and now I'm doing DIYs. I'm basically a creative at heart and enjoy all sorts of creative outlets. However, I find my true passion right now, and probably for long to come, is DIYing. I thoroughly enjoy it, as well as the hunt for thrift finds and making them over into, giving them new life and making them over into something new that someone else can appreciate, whether in my house or elsewhere. I took this free printable that I got. Of course, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will link it for you in the description box below. I took it and trimmed it down, and as you see here, I had started to make kind of a rosette out of papers. I ended up scrapping that idea because I thought it started to become too messy looking. Paper piecing is very personal. I would say it's kind of just what makes your eye feel happy. I try to use pattern paper and cardstock, so solid colors, and put them together that look good together and kind of go well together. Here I ended up using the free printable that said "Hey Summer" and backed it onto a plain piece of turquoise cardstock that seemed to match along with my fabric. Then used some cardstock and pattern paper to create some banner flag type pieces. I'm sure most of you or many of you know how to dovetail ribbons. That's basically what I did to the ends of the paper pieces. I put them under till I was happy. I think I had 3 on one side, 2 on the other. I felt it looked good. Then I took some turquoise cord that I also had in my scrapbooking stash and lined the top and bottom, and then just tied a simple bow and adhered it to the corner. And that was it for DIY number 1. If you have any questions on paper piecing that I didn't make clear here, which obviously I didn't make it too clear at all, please let me know in the comments down below. With some free fence board scraps of wood that I got off Facebook Marketplace, I used one as my straight edge and just used a pencil to draw some lines that I used as guides to follow with my Mastercraft jigsaw. I made cuts in various sizes, each kind of one smaller than the other, because what we're going to make is kind of a mini stack of faux books. So as you see here, I cut them down, the 3, and then because I knew it was going to be for a tier tray, I felt they were still a little too long, so I just eyeballed what I thought looked good and cut it off the ends of each one. Once I cut the first one, I used that to measure, so that way they'd all be the same size at the back as well. Then with some 80 grit sandpaper from Dollartree, I gave each piece a good sanding. With Folk Arts chalk paint in white Adirondack, I gave each piece a good coat all over. It was more so that the colors would show up better, as you'll see in the next step. Then I took butter yellow and painted it onto the medium sized one, and deep turquoise, I brushed this on to the largest size. This gave me the three colors I thought would work well with the kind of theme that we have going on based on the fabric that was used in DIY number 1. Then I took to my printer and just typed up Home Sweet Home using lemons for the O's, and printed this out on white tissue paper. If you haven't seen how it's done, Sandra at the Schwoven's Nest explains it quite well. It's where I got my ideas to do this from. And I cut it into strips, cut it down to size, and put each one on with the matte decoupage from Decor. Then once they were on, I used hot glue to glue each piece together so that they would stay put. Then using the turquoise cord from DIY number 1, I wrapped the books 3 times and tied a simple knot on top, and then trimmed the ends and frayed them a bit, and that was it for DIY number 2. For DIY number 3, I took some more of the scrap wood and free-handed with a pencil a lemon shape onto one of the boards. I had it clamped down to my work surface and took my Mastercraft jigsaw to cut this out. I ended up cutting out 3 lemon shapes very carefully. Of course, as this is power tools, make sure you keep your fingers away and wear your safety gear. But I cut out 3 lemon shapes in various sizes, each gradually a little bit bigger than the other, as you see here. Then I brought them back inside to my craft table and marked out with the ruler. I knew I was going to string these to make kind of a mini garland, so I thought it'd be neat kind of on an angle. So I marked out with the ruler roughly where I thought I wanted like the cord to go through them. So I marked on top with my pencil where I wanted to drill the holes, then went back out to the garage and carefully drilled. This wasn't the easiest, but drilled some holes in it. As you see on the last one here, I made a mistake, so there's 2 holes. If you really wanted, you could fill this in with wood filler. It also almost went through the back. For me, I didn't really mind, so I just left it as is. After giving them a sand with the 80 grit sandpaper from Dollartree to remove any splinters, I used the Folk Art chalk paint in white Adirondack and gave each piece a good coat all around. Then I used the acrylic paint from Dollartree in butter yellow to give each lemon a good couple of coats. Then I took sunny yellow and dabbed it on with one of their kind of rough stencil brushes. This was to kind of just add dimension and texture. I did this all over. Then went in with Folk Arts acrylic paint in School Bus, I believe it was called. Yeah, School Bus yellow. And again, dabbed this on top, again, to just add some more texture and dimension with the colors, and actual texture to it, as you're going to see when I pick it up here. I thought this kind of gave it a real kind of bumpy lemon skin look. Then I went in with the Folk Art Home Decor Antique Wax and distressed or darkened the sides. I used a sponge brush and my finger to achieve the look that I thought looked best. With some wood beads from Dollarama and some jute twine from Dollartree, I began stringing our mini garland. I cut a wooden skewer stick from Dollartree into half and taped the jute twine to it to use kind of as my needle to help string or thread the twine through the lemons and beads. I started at the bottom, added 2 beads, then the largest lemon, then a bead, then the medium lemon, then a bead, then the smallest lemon, and then finish it off with some alternating beads on the top. I did 5 of them there. tied off a simple knot, and then reweaved the twine back down the first 3 beads just to hide this, and then cut off any remaining twine that was left. Then taking the turquoise cord again, I just used the picture hanging kit from Dollartree as my sizer and wrapped around, I'm not sure how many times, but wrapped it around till I felt it was best to make a tassel for the bottom of the mini garland. I tied off, once I was happy with the amount that I had wrapped it, I slid this off, then tied a knot around the top with a separate piece of the cord and trimmed the ends, then slid it up to the top because the top loop is where you're gonna hang it from, then cut the ends on the bottom. I then slipped it onto the bottom piece of jute twine of the garland and tied it on. Because this was such a tiny piece, I was able to make 1 knot, but I couldn't make the second, so I just used some hot glue to kind of glue it down. And then to hide this, because I kind of made a mess, obviously if I had been thinking before I made things, I would have left a longer piece, so I would have just been able to tie it better. But because I didn't think and kind of was just working as I was going, because I used the hot glue, I end up wrapping the end with an extra piece of jute twine just to kind of give it a finished look. Then I took some of this white cord from Dollartree, made a simple bow, adhered it on with some hot glue, trimmed up the ends of the tassel, and that was it for DIY number 3. For DIY number 4, you're going to need coffee stir sticks. Mine were from Dollarama, but the ones from Dollar Tree would work as well. You just may need more of them because I know the ones from Dollar Tree are a little bit shorter than the ones I was using. I lined these up, then used my ruler to mark off where I was going to make cuts. I wanted to cut off all the curved ends, so that's the first line I made. Then I measured out how wide the 5 of them were together, then used that measurement to mark out where I was going to make the next cut, so that way they were kind of square in shape. So I think for me it was around 1¼ inches. I marked that down because I wanted 5 sets. Then I took my scissors and began cutting them into pieces. As you see here, there's 5 in each one. I just lined them back up. Then took another coffee stir stick, cut it to size to fit on the back, used hot glue to adhere it. And as you can tell, or as you see, we're kind of making mini pallets. Afterwards, I realized that one wasn't really one popsicle stick or coffee stick on the back wasn't super substantial. So had I done this again, or if you're going to give this a try, maybe space it out a little more to have kind of 2 on each end. So here I'm showing you, I did go back and add a second piece. So here's all 5 once they were done and put together. Then with the faux art chalk paint in white Adirondack again, I gave them a rough coat because I wanted these to really kind of be rustic and kind of beat up looking. I didn't want a good solid coat. Then I freehanded with a pencil first, so that way if I made any mistakes, I could erase them. But I freehanded the word lemon, or well, at least the letters L-E-M and N, and then freehanded a picture of a lemon for the O. Then went in with the deep turquoise acrylic paint from Dollartree and a tiny, tiny brush, which really helped, and took my time very slowly and filled these in. I just wanted to show that it is possible to do hand lettering. It's a very inexpensive way to do some DIYs and make home decor. You don't need to have a cutting machine like a Cricut, which I usually use in my DIYs. But I actually like how this turned out quite well. But by all means, if you want to use stickers, you could do that too. I took the sunny yellow, either sunny yellow or butter yellow, and filled in the lemon, and then a hunter green acrylic paint from, I believe this one was from Dollarama, and filled in the leaves of the lemon, and then went back with the white Adirondack chalk paint and very lightly dry brushed over the letters to kind of, again, just make them a little more aged and rustic. I also then finished it off with a sanding of the letters and actually the lemon as well. As you see here, I dry brushed it and sanded it with some more of the 80 grit sandpaper from Dollar Tree. Next, I took some bamboo skewers from Dollar Tree and cut them down and adhered them to the backs of the letters using hot glue. Once they were adhered, I then took a little bit of some drop cloth canvas that I had on hand and just glued over top of the skewer stick and placed the drop cloth pieces on top just as an extra hold to help ensure that the pieces would stay on and stay in place long term. That was it for DIY number 4. DIY number 5 is super simple and basically a continuation of DIY number 4. As you'll see, they end up going together. Taking a clean baby food jar, I gave it a couple of coats of Folk Arts chalk paint in white Adirondack, then took another piece of the fabric that you saw from Michael's in DIY number 1 and half a styrofoam ball. I cut down the styrofoam ball with a serrated knife from my kitchen. Do this carefully, obviously, if you're going to do it this way. Obviously, take any precautions necessary. I used it to stuff it down. I didn't want it right up to the top. I wanted it down a bit, but I needed some filler and I needed something for the skewers to go into, as you will see coming up. I placed the fabric on top and just arranged it and pushed it in till my eyes were happy, basically. No rhyme or reason why or how I did it, and then just used some hot glue to glue it down where I felt I wanted it to hold a little better in place. Then took some of the white cord from Dollar Tree, wrapped it around a few times and tied a bow, and that is basically it for DIY number 5. I don't even know if it really should be called a DIY, but technically I did do it myself. I did change it. It's not just your baby food jar that it started out as, but that was it for DIY number 5. And then to style the two together, I first wanted to do the letters in various heights, but quickly realized that wasn't going to work. So I moved on to this layout. So I kind of laid them in a rainbow arc shape and glued each one together with hot glue, and then put them into the baby food jar, kind of stabbing them through the material and into the styrofoam ball pieces. When I was happy with how they were sitting in there, I did take a little bit of hot glue behind one of the stakes, or well, skewers, to help hold it in place. Then took some of these little white delicate flowers from Dollar Tree, cut them down into individual pieces and use them as some filler, and that is it, how I styled DIY number 4 and 5. I really hope you guys enjoyed these DIYs today. They're some of my favorites. You'll have to let me know which one you ended up liking best. And here is the glamour shots of them on the tier tray. How I decided to style it. I used some extra florals and a lemon pick, a little succulent, a milk can. Anyways, like I said, I really hope you like these. You'll have to let me know your favorite in the comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps. Maybe give it a share, subscribe if you want to see more, and thanks for watching. Bye.